The following is a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.
The Podcast of Terror is a great podcast. It's covering movies that are not for children, and thus this podcast is not for children. The hosts are two adults who will use bad words from time to time. They'll also spoil movies if that's not your thing. So if you don't like spoilers and you don't want to hear some dirty language or some dirty references to dirty parts of your body, then please, please, please wash your body parts better and do not listen to this show. If you can handle it, and I hope you can because there's a great podcast coming up, then please proceed with Podcast of Terror.
Corey, I couldn't help but notice that you're wearing a shirt.
I try to whenever possible. There were laws passed.
What are the odds that you wear a shirt every day of your life?
Almost 40%.
Attaboy. Well, let me tell you about a little sales bonanza we got going here. We got some friends. These friends got some codes. Go visit our friends at the Hate. That's the. If you can't spell the, go back to school. Hate, HVIII.com. Use the code HBG15, get 15% off your order. And if your tits still require more fabric, go to status.
I need to double up.
You got to double. You can never have too much tit fabric. Go to statuspheremerch.com, use the code TERROR, and get you some sweet discounts there.
Burn and fire, burn the fire. Burn and fire, burn the fire.
Welcome to episode 95 of the Podcast of Terror, a production of the Galactic Network. We're recording this after the pod shot that you may or may not have already listened to, so I'm already a couple oat sodas in. I am your host, Matt Stein. This is a production of the Galactic Network, and with me, as always, Corey, I fuck Scott. Hey, buddy.
Is that I'm fucking myself, or is that my middle name? Or
no, your middle name is I fuck because
middle name Scott out there who's just getting it from Corey.
Nope. Your middle name is I fuck because this guy fucks.
Oh, it's not I is the proper.
No,
noun.
you don't.
It's
I fuck Scott.
Is in the socket.
You fuck, and your last name's Scott.
I personally fuck.
This guy fucks.
Personally must be a nickname.
This guy fucks.
That really I don't.
Yeah, you're married. No one
How's
fucks
it going,
when you're
man?
married. For more on this podcast, including show notes, content information, subscription links, go to gncast.com/bot. You can chat with us on our Slack channel during our shows at gncast.com/sign up. And while you're there, subscribe to our newsletter. This week we're going to be talking about a little film from 2015 called Gravy. It's not about the actual gravy. It's not about Thanksgiving. Real upset about both of those things. I was a little hungry.
It takes place on Devil's Night, actually.
I don't get why it's called Gravy.
It'd be.
We'll get into it, but before we do our news, Corey, what you drinking?
I am popping the cap finally on this Mountain Dew that is probably now room temperature, which kind of sucks, but whatever.
Sorry,
I'm doing a glass bottle. That's what you got to have to enjoy life and not have children unless you want to get an operation.
So what is it?
It's Mountain Dew.
Oh, I didn't see when you held it up. Sorry, I was doing 12 other things.
I was uncapping it.
Attaboy. Get that label out.
Sponsors, welcome.
Yep. Pepsi, Mountain Dew, if you want to sponsor us, go for it. During the pot shot, I drank Founders Dirty Bastard Scotch Ale. It's super fucking good. I had Founders Curmudgeon, which is also very fucking good. And then a beer called Golden Ale Potosi from I don't know where. I threw the bottle away because I had to refill to do this. Right now I have Midnight Sun Treat. This is literally one of my favorite beers ever. It is a Imperial Chocolate Pumpkin Porter because I'm a white girl and an alcoholic.
Are you on your fourth beer right now?
I am. The first three were small bottles. This one, it's a big guy.
They weren't mini bottles. They were like shit that they give you on an airplane. They were actual
they were
bottle-sized
like 12-ounce bottles.
It's barely a sniff.
I was thirsty. Don't harsh my mellow. Yeah, let's do some news, and then we'll talk about Gravy. I don't know. I don't even know what we do here anymore. Deep Blue Sea is getting a sequel. I haven't seen the first one. I don't know why there's a second one.
How have you not seen the first one?
Easily, I didn't watch it.
I'm not a giant shark movie fan. I had only in the last couple of years, probably maybe a year or two before we started doing this podcast, finally seen Jaws, and that was on a recommendation from Glenn Rubenstein, who we had on here recently when I used to do the What We're Watching Weekly show with him over on Spreecast. But Deep Blue Sea, man, it's one of those things that's kind of beloved, and I'm not exactly sure why, other than the fact that it's got Samuel L. Jackson and LL Cool J in it, and once you've got those two dudes in a movie, you can't really go too far wrong. But
that's true.
They are making a sequel to a movie that is 20 years old. I don't remember exactly when it came out. It certainly doesn't seem necessary. It certainly doesn't seem like this is the property that everybody's been waiting to come back to. But on the other hand, hasn't there been like 2 recent shark movies in the theaters?
In the theaters, I don't know, but they keep doing Sharknadoes, which we've obviously
the Sharknadoes, absolutely. But they have the one that's out right now with Mandy Moore, and they had one right before it with Blake Lively.
What?
Where she was Yeah, dude, the shark movies are big at the moment because the Blake Lively one happened, and then the Mandy Moore one, what I don't even think was supposed to come out in the theater, was going to be a direct-to-video or maybe a made-for-TV thing, but then went to the theaters. I could be wrong on this, but it seemed like it got more of a push because of the Blake Lively movie right before it happening.
Weird.
Yeah, but yeah. Is Aaron Eckhart in Deep Blue Sea? Is that what I remember correctly?
Oh, I'm trying to find out what fucking shark movie Mandy Moore was in.
Well, Blake Lively's one was The Shallows.
47 meters down?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's the only one that makes sense. Mandy Moore is in the Tangled sequel, which is fucking
Oh, yeah, because she was in the original.
Oh, there's a TV series. Get fucked, Tangled. Sorry.
The Tangled movie was actually pretty good. I don't know what you're crapping on it.
I don't know, man. I kept thinking of Frozen.
Yeah, 47 meters down, 2 sisters vacationing in Mexico are trapped in a shark cage at the bottom of the ocean. With less than an hour of oxygen left, and great white sharks circling nearby, they must fight to survive.
Shouldn't have gotten in it in the first place. And
I don't know why. Why do you do that? Because
you're a dumb white girl.
White girl problems.
Yeah,
it's a great white. Stupid. But yeah, Deep Blue Sea. So I don't know, man. What I can't imagine what the pull is for this, but I do agree, at least on the surface, that Deep Blue Sea was a fun movie. It's I think it's kind of maybe a little bit like the Jurassic Park of shark movies. It's got the right kind of energy. The ending was weird. I felt like the ending was maybe a little uncalled for. One of the characters that dies, I'm just like, really? That didn't seem like it made any sense at all.
Yeah.
But I'd probably see this. I don't know that I'd see this in the theater, but I would probably watch this. I feel like it would be one that I would check out just for what it is, as long as it's a legitimate sequel, which I don't know. Not enough is left from the first one to make it a legitimate sequel. Just got to have LL. You just got to get LL in there. And at that point, you might as well do a sequel to Halloween H2O.
Ladies love cool
back in that. God damn right they do.
Yeah, so it's going to be a video on demand DVD Blu-ray before airing on Sci-Fi because Sci-Fi gets all of the shit.
Yeah.
No release date. Who gives a fuck?
It's just for Shark Week. Everything comes out for Shark Week on Sci-Fi these days.
Shark Week was once a month in my house. More news that you didn't know that you needed, but you apparently need because we're about to talk about it. Elvira, the Mistress of the Dark, will guide players through the Call of the Booty, if it were up to me. Call of Duty's Attack of the Radioactive Thing DLC. This is DLC for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which is Call of Duty 8. So their 6th piece of shit that they put out. I don't even fuck you, Infinity Ward, Call of Duty, and Sledgehammer, and whoever made that. That game was so good, and then you turned it into a street hooker.
I was gonna ask, have you played the Call of Duty games? It sounds like you have.
I did. I call it Modern Warfare was a phenomenal game. It was first one, like multiplayer video gaming was huge, and then I bought Infinite Warfare and Advanced Warfare, and it was like trying crack. Like maybe it'll be as good as the first time, and it was never the same. You have fucking jetpacks, and you're getting jerked off in the back alley. That part's false. I lied about that. It's not. I don't know, man. It's not very good. But this makes me want to play it, which sucks because that's what they're fucking doing.
It sounds like a good sell. It says, along with Elvira's presence in the game, genre fans will certainly appreciate the classic sci-fi and horror theming, which will see the return of Willard Wyler, the enigmatic movie director villain portrayed with voice and likeness by Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman. Wyler has trapped the four protagonists inside an all-new horror film set in the 1950s and in the style of the creature feature films of that era. Players will fight a new array of zombie enemies across a ravaged beach town where a government science experiment has transformed the residents into flesh-devouring zombies and introduced a new biological menace into the city. So you get Paul Rubens and you've got Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Cassandra Peterson, who is one of the introductions to my stepfather that I can recall was I didn't know a lot about the guy at that point in time, but I knew that he was really into Elvira, and he had the Elvira movie on VHS, and they watched a lot. And then it's actually a really fun movie, the first one. I don't know if he had the sequel or not. She's great. She's amazing, and she's another one of those. I know Hollywood always like to say that their actors get older and they get better looking, and their actresses get older and they, stop getting parts in films and stuff, which sucks. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that that's true, though. That seems, unfortunately, to be the case. But she is one of those women who seems to get more beautiful as she ages, and I think she's very pretty, not as Elvira, but certainly as Elvira, there's something magical about her, and she's got one of those personalities that just kind of rings out, and has brought so much attention to the horror films in general. Maybe for different reasons, but it all kind of equals out the same thing because she's a true fan.
10 out of 10 would bang Elvira.
I would just like to meet her. I think she that's the other thing too, is that a lot of people who've met her at shows and stuff, she seems to be really sweet and wonderful.
Fun fact, the first guy that tattooed me has a Elvira tattooed on his forearm. Shout out
She's
Chris
iconic.
Schultz.
She is a total icon.
That dude is such a huge fan of like old school horror movies that his nickname was Von Schlitzie. Yep. Also loves Schlitz beer.
Man.
Chris is one of the fucking coolest people I've ever met in my entire life. If I could get him to talk on a podcast, I would have him on here, but he's super quiet in person.
Strangely, so am I.
What?
Yeah.
I literally, what you get is what you get.
Yeah.
I talk as much in here as I did when we hung out that one time.
And you drink twice as much.
That's because I'm sitting here. If fucking Bubba Gump brought me more beers, I would have had more beer at Bubba Gump's. I blame Travis.
So Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, you get to have her lead you through the new Call of Duty expansion pack, which sounds like I don't know anything about the Call of Duty games, but that sounds like a pretty cool DLC to have.
No, it sounds super cool, but unfortunately, it's just shit. Anyways.
You don't like the actual game itself, so
no,
the DLC for it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the game's gotten pretty bad. Fucking kids. The next story we have coming from our friends over at Horror Geek Life. The Hellboy Rise of the Blood Queen reboot will embrace the blood and practical effects, which I know nothing about the Hellboy comic books or any of its origin, but I could see it being like super gruesome and bloody.
Yeah, the Hellboy comics are dark. They do certainly they seem a little bit more classic monstery to me as well. But it is a horror themed comic book with a somewhat superheroic character in the form of Hellboy in it. And then when you include the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Development, the BPRD, with Abe Sapien and Liz and the different power sets they have and everything, it becomes kind of more of a superhero spy book, but the elements of the stories themselves are very much in the horror genre. And the films with Ron Perlman were mainstream, as they should have been, and certainly the expectations from superhero movies or comic book movies at the time that those came out kind of demanded that they be that way to get any kind of success. And I wish they would have been bigger successes. I think they're one of those things that do much better in hindsight. But now in the era of Deadpool being one of the most successful films, the most successful R-rated film of all time, and being based off of comic book properties, gives it the opportunity to say, we're going to get back to the basics with the new Hellboy in a way that they weren't able to do before. So we talked a little bit about the fact that Perlman and Del Toro were not coming back for the new film, but they had already kind of determined that anyways, they weren't going to come back and do a third one. So when the new movies got announced with a different creative control, with Neil Marshall from Dog Soldiers and Game of Thrones and David Harbour from Stranger Things, David taking on the role, people were disappointed, but we kind of should have already adjusted to the disappointment at that point already. Now it says that the films are going to be looked at in a different makeup than what they were before. We've been granted permission to do it R-rated, which for me is like taking the cuffs off. Marshall explained. It's like, okay, so we can now just make the movie we want to make. It's not like I'm going to force it to be R-rated, but if it happens to come out that way, just because of its own sensibilities, then fine, and nobody's going to stop us. So that's the main difference. And I'm sure, obviously, the success of things like Deadpool and Logan have not hurt that cause. But also, when you go back to the original material, it's kind of bloody, so I'm going to embrace that. And I don't know. I don't look at Del Toro's stuff and think of it as digital effects or practical effects. I just think that his monster movie aesthetic is terrific and always looks great on the screen. But I certainly appreciate practical effects more in modern day movies. It seems that there's a fine line between practical for the sake of practical and CGI for the sake of CGI. But when they're utilized together in the correct way, I think they look really excellent. And so I like to see people who do practical effects get kind of used more. But that's also not to take away the people who do CGI, as long as it's done well. And this sounds like it's going to embrace the two, but lean more towards the practical, which is usually, for me, aesthetically what I like more.
Yeah, going back to what you said about the films not being PG-13, is it seems like ever since Deadpool came out, like all of these movies are like, it's okay to be rated R. It always was. It's just I think they were shooting for a PG-13 to try and entice the masses instead of actually appeal to the crowd that they should be appealing to. Yeah,
and I don't know, the kids are really, certainly when you have your Frozen come out or Despicable Me or whatever, kids, like young kids, run to the theaters and their parents take them there, and they're usually also in the summertime, so it's like, let's drop them off someplace where we can get some air conditioning and get them out of our hair for a little bit or whatever. But I don't know that the PG-13 sect is really quite as important anymore, because kids are watching stuff streaming more than anything, and I don't see them going to the theaters as much. I think it happens, but I think that as many people go to see R-rated movies as they do anything else now, whereas when I was a kid, maybe that was a different case. Although when I was a kid, we also used to just buy the tickets to whichever movie we felt like we had to get in to watch what movie we wanted to. Or Sometimes they just didn't give a shit. Okay, it's rated R. You're 14. Who gives a fuck, man? I make $5 an hour if I'm happy. Just do what you're gonna do. So, yeah,
The times are
at the end of the day, the stuff is gonna hit the theater for a couple of months, but then it's gonna live on in Netflix and everywhere else, and that's where everybody's gonna watch it who wants to see it because there are no lockups for that. So
That's
just
very
make
true.
the best movie that you can and do it for the right story and for the right audience, and then the audience will find you.
Yep. The new Hellboy starts filming late fall of this year, or excuse me, fall of this year with a late 2018 release. I don't know. I read it 3 minutes ago and I forgot. Fucking deal with it.
It sounds right.
Yeah,
I believe in you, man.
It's coming out late 2018. I remember that part. The last news story we have, Melanie Linsky.
Melanie Linsky.
Okay, all right. Takes female lead in Hulu's Castle Rock. The name Castle Rock rings a bell, but I don't know what. I know nothing about it.
Castle Rock is the town that a lot of Stephen King stories take
That's
place
what it
in,
is.
like Cujo and I can't remember them all, but they all kind of cross over. The Dark Half, It, Needful Things are all in the place of Castle Rock. So Castle Rock is a TV series that is original to Hulu, that's going to be on their streaming service, that is going to focus in that town. Now, I don't know how much is going to have crossover with the characters that already have existed, but Hulu's already done an 11/22/63 series based on King's work. So they have a good relationship with King on his other stuff. So, Melanie Linsky, are you familiar with her at all?
By name, no. Let me look.
She
up.
is from New Zealand. She was in Heavenly Creatures, which is an early work of Peter Jackson. It had her and Kate Winslet. But this is Pete Jackson at the time that he was doing the Meet the Feebles and doing Dead Alive and Bad Taste and that sort of stuff. So this is early Peter Jackson. Heavenly Creatures was 1994, so it's still before he had gotten into the mode of doing Hobbits, everything. And she was in The Frighteners briefly. She's shown up in some of his stuff. She played Charlie's on again, off again psycho stalker girlfriend on 2.5 Men. She's great. She's certainly one of my favorite actresses, and I think is going to bring a certain amount of respect for me for this role. She was also in the Stephen King miniseries Rose Red several years ago on ABC. Also in this, which I think is just as interesting, if not more, Jane Levy, who was in Don't Breathe recently and was in the remake of The Evil Dead, and Sissy Spacek, who played Carrie, is going to be in this. So right off the bat, those are three actresses that I am a fan of. Some cases like Spacek for a long time. I remember being a little kid and seeing Coal Miner's Daughter with her and thinking that she was so great in that, but she's just done an enormous body of work since then. That's all been really good stuff. This adds a level to this that I don't know that I was expecting from what sounds like what could have been a standard sci-fi television show. Now it seems a little bit more intriguing. So the characters are all going to mix it up in this town. I don't know. We've talked about Stephen King so much, but I don't remember if you've actually read much of his stuff or if you're a fan of it.
I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. My mom read Stephen King as I was growing up, so I'm sure is the majority of her life. So Stephen King has always been something that has been in part of my life. But I'm much more of a visual person, so I tried I tried listening to The Dark Tower because the movie's coming out. And I just, if a book on tape is on, I tend to space out. But with that being said, like Langoliers, Tommyknockers, The Stand, I love all of those movies.
Yeah, and those are all the made for TV movies. Those are all versions that were made for the. I wouldn't mind at some point watching, because I remember it from being a kid and it scaring the shit out of me. I wouldn't mind us reviewing Salem's Lot at some point.
Okay. We need a
'Cause there
movie
was-
for next week, so do you want to do that one?
We'll see. But that's definitely one that, like, I remember only a specific scene from that, and it just, oh man, that just drove me crazy as a kid. I'm like, I had nightmares for weeks after that part. But yeah, I same thing. I've seen more Stephen King films than anything else.
Yep.
I've been reading his book, and the only couple of books that I've read, I've tried to get through the first Dark Tower book right when I moved to California and didn't make it all the way. But that was as much circumstances of my life as the book itself. I've read Eyes of the Dragon and then his book on writing, which is terrible representation for the rest of Stephen King as I understand it. So I wouldn't mind getting into more of his stuff. But this is an interesting way to do it because one of the things about Stephen King that is so compelling to me is the connected universe stuff.
Yeah.
Is the concept of these characters having some interaction, which is kind of what the Dark Tower is. It's these characters having a shared world. That's all completely compelling, and I'd like to see how that works out. And this is kind of a taste of that, in a way that I guess the Dark Tower is going to be in the movie as well, since we've seen in the clips things of them mentioning Pennywise, and I think they mentioned something about either The Shining in that or Cujo in that all kind of wound up.
We have a new guest.
Just random dog shut up.
My dog, Officer O.T. Booger. That's his legal name, too. That's his legal name.
We have that on his little birth certificate.
It is. Well, his original name was Oliver, and the people that decided they didn't want him anymore gave him to us. We called him Officer Ollie to Booger. And just watch him nest real quick. If you're watching the video, if you're listening to this is boring as fuck.
But if you're listening to this, you should go to our YouTube and take a
and
look
watch,
at it
yeah,
because he is adorable.
I fucking love that dog. I got him tattooed on me. But yeah, his name is Officer O.T. Booger because we called him Ollie to Booger. Yeah, he's. So just watch him nest real quick.
Did he figure out how to open the door himself?
No,
or did he
Alyssa let him in. I just saw her arm pop open, and I'm like, which dog is on its way in? She sent me a couple pictures. There were dogs sitting outside the door sleeping, waiting.
Oh.
One of them waiting for me, the other just waiting for the dog bed. Either way. So, Castle Rock. When does it come out? Does it come out ever? Has it already come out?
No, it has not come out. They've just started announcing the cast and stuff for it, so I don't even know that it's actually started filming yet.
Well, when I looked at Melanie's IMDb, I saw like 6 episodes listed, so there must be a little more to this. Not that I'm. Let me go back there real quick. I'm almost there.
Do you subscribe to Hulu?
No, I do not.
I haven't, but this might be the thing that gets me to do it. I always say that. It's like, what's the show that's going to get me to start a subscription to this service? What's the one that's going to get me to sign up for Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
This might be it for me.
I have Amazon Prime for the shipping, but it's listed as 2018 on IMDb, and she's listed as through the first 10 episodes. There's a character named Molly Strand. So we'll see. But yeah, I guess it's 2018 at some point. Yeah, before we get into Gravy, unless you had more to say, and I cut you off like a dick. No? Okay, shake your head like a beautiful little hair marble you are. Before we get into the discussion of our movie Gravy, which may not be much for discussion because beer, I want to talk a little bit about a thing. Let me take a sip first. I do want to thank a little fella named Brian Jensen, who recently became a supporter of the Galactic Network. If you are interested in becoming a supporter, go ahead and go to gncast.com/support. That will link you to our Patreon page. You can go ahead and there's options. I don't know what they are right now because I don't have it up in front of me in beer. But our friend Growly Bear, who we talk about literally every week, a fucking sweetheart. The man ignores work to listen to us, man after my own heart. He's also a supporter. You can be right up there with the likes of Growly and our friend Brian here. You could support us. It keeps the show free for you. A little upset Corey hasn't cut me off yet, but it's free for you.
I'm just letting you milk this as far as you want to go with it.
I'm milking the Patreon teats. But yeah, basically you help us offset the cost of hosting these podcasts, putting them out, yada, yada, yada. Shaboopy.
Shaboom, shaboom.
Shaboom, shaboom. All right, this movie film gravy.
So
I expected something about gravy.
Yeah,
Not a gravy.
It's not a gravy. It's not the sequel to Ghost Ship, so it's not a gravy boat. But it is about sweet eating of humans.
That was fucking weird. I read nothing about this movie, and I'm like, oh, weird. They're gonna start eating people. They didn't even use gravy. They didn't murder people with gravy.
I'm sure as the night went on, the hardest part is you have to start with a roux. You have to mix things together. You got to use
It's not that difficult to make gravy, children.
But it's a time consuming thing, and it seemed like they were on a timeline for the couple of meals that we did see. I have had this movie on my DVR. I took a picture of it since August of last year. I've been waiting for us to get to this, and I've been looking forward to watching the movie since before that. Now, first things first, this is a movie that was written and directed by James Roday. I forget the other person who wrote it with him, but James is from the TV show Psych, which I am a huge fan of. Psych is coming back with a made-for-TV movie in the next year or so. They just recently announced it. So James Roday and Dule Hill and all of the gang, Maggie Lawson, Timothy Omundson, I think Corbin Burnson, and all of them are coming back to do this. I love Psych. I watch the reruns. They're on at like midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I should sleep more than I do, and I don't. But I watched them all when it was on, just like Monk. And I keep waiting for Monk to have a TV movie as well, because that's something I would love to have come back. So I knew that this was out, and I knew that James and some people who were associated with the show, Michael Weston, has appeared on the show a couple of times. Michael Weston is one of those guys that you'll see him and you go, oh yeah, that's Charlie Day from Always Sunny. No, it's not. But you've seen him in so many things. Yes. I knew you were going to say it.
And it's not that I knew it wasn't Charlie Day, but the problem was he was such a Charlie Day ripoff.
But he's not exactly, but he was certainly playing a cartoonish character in this that was akin to Charlie on Always Sunny, which is not a bad character to emulate, because
I love Sonny and I love Charlie. It's just that's the first thing I thought of. There was like a solid 20 minutes where I was like, is that Charlie Day? Is that not Charlie Day?
Yeah. Jimmy Simpson is also in this, and he's been on Psych a few times, and Jimmy just recently was on Westworld on HBO, but you'll recognize him also from Always Sunny, because he is one of the family that...
I think he's Cricket.
No, he's not Cricket. He's one of the brothers, the family that hates Charlie and always comes to the bar and tortures him, and they walk around in the bathrobes and their underwear. And so it's almost like they should have had
Poyles.
the other guy from the Poyles.
The McPoyle family, yes.
The McPoyles, yeah. So Jimmy's a great comedic actor. Jimmy, who actually used to be married to Melanie Linsky. I didn't realize that they had divorced recently, but that means she's open for me. And who else? Gabourey Sidby. I could never pronounce her name. You would recognize her from Precious. Sarah Silverman is in this. Yep. Lily Cole, Paul Rodriguez, aka Pablo, Gabriel Luna. A lot of great people in this movie, and it is definitely, if you are a fan of the show Psych, and you want to see it amped up into a R-rated film with cannibalism and people getting tortured and everything in the middle of the night on the eve of Halloween, this is the movie for you.
Yeah, if those are all the things that you're looking for in a movie, that's certainly where you should go look, I guess.
So kind of also a throwback to Psych, but I want to point this out because one of the things that I was taken with was as I'm watching this is the soundtrack. The music kind of leads you along. It starts out at the very beginning with Michael Wesson's character Anson going into a party store / gas station store at night, and they're playing "Sowing the Seeds of Love" by Tears for Fears, and he's singing along. And Tears for Fears, again, one of the guys who used to show up on Psych, and they kept bringing them out in in-jokes, so I thought it was cool that they used his music for this. But the music in this kind of really led you around. Some of the songs were very cutesy, kiddish in horrific ways and the way they were used. But the soundtrack wasn't quite up there with like a Guardians of the Galaxy by James Gunn, but it felt very similar. And the music felt important towards the scenes it was used in. It wasn't just background stuff. And it wasn't something as blatant as what they did with Suicide Squad or as cheap to use the effect. But I felt like everything as I'm going along and the music, whatever song starts playing, I'm like, oh shit, that's a great choice. And it made the scenes feel a little bit more evocative of what they were already doing.
Yeah.
So did you have some problems with this?
Not really. I didn't know what
you didn't know what was going to happen.
Nope. I had no idea what the concept of the movie was, and no idea what the plot was, the motivation. So I really can't complain about anything because I didn't know what I was going into it. I didn't know what it was going into it.
Yep.
So there was nothing to really be let down about. I assumed gravy. I guess the eating makes
really
sense.
Looking for gravy, just like you're always looking for your turkey chili recipe.
I do love turkey.
On Weird World Weekly.
Chilies. But the thing is
so the plot of the movie.
Yeah, it made sense that they ate them, but going into it, I didn't know what it was. So it was like when he was digging through the ice cream chest and he was getting ice cream at the gas station, I expected something to happen in terms of plot gravy, and that didn't happen. So if my biggest complaint about this movie is that the name doesn't fit the plot, that's okay.
Yeah, I liken this probably both the name and the style of the movie itself to the movie Feast that we watched last year, because it's just so over the top and crazy, and it's everybody trapped in this one room, which is in this case a restaurant. In Feast they were all trapped in a bar, but Feast was a more sci-fi version because it had to do with alien creatures and stuff that were coming around and trying to eat everybody. This is being trapped by what is a couple of brothers and one of the brothers' girlfriends who they had picked up the year before. Every year on the eve of Halloween, which for me, being from Detroit, it's called Devil's Night, they go and they lock themselves into a place with a bunch of people that are there. They weld up the door so that no one can get in or out. And they spend the night going through games and stuff to determine what order they're going to kill and eat each of the people in. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the film is just going through the sequences and seeing that happen and getting an understanding of the characters who have instigated this and the characters who are the victims in this case. And we very early on dispatch of the would-be hero, who is the manager of the restaurant, probably the owner, because all of these people around him are his friends or his family and are loyal to him. And Jimmy Simpson, as Steph, basically says, yeah, we can't really let you do that because that's going to ruin it for us. We have to kill this linchpin for everybody else so that we can kind of manipulate them more and get them over to how we want things to go. So
it was very odd.
It was odd, but it was very comedic. There's a loyalty between the two killers, between the brothers, Steph and Anson. And there's certainly a loyalty that Steph has to his girlfriend, Mimi, Lily Cole's character. We find out at some point in the film, we find out that Lily Cole was one of the would-be victims from the year before. And she basically just turns her back to everybody getting killed, and she's like, "This is boring. You know, if you're gonna kill them, do it the right way." Or "I hated that bitch," or whatever. And she speaks in a British accent, and so Steph is already really into her, and she seems much more sadistic. But what it is it turns out, we find out later on, and here's where spoilers start coming in, is that she did it to be able to survive, but she also seems kind of into it. Like it was a matter of, I have to do this to be able to live through this, but she fakes the English accent, so we find out that she's actually American.
That was in reality, she is English.
She is.
So,
but she does a pretty good American accent when she.
I agree, but that blew my mind when I was like, "Oh, she's really." Her fake accent was real, and her real accent is fake.
I also don't know if it was a real hair color.
It is. She's a super duper redhead.
Yeah.
Apparently tall as fuck too. I googled that.
Yeah. So, so the guys come in. They weld up the doors. They start holding everybody hostage. There is one guy, I think it's Bert, who starts out the night drunk. He had proposed to his girlfriend in the bar, and she refused him and said she was interested in this girl in a emo cover band. I think she was in a cover band for Susie and the Banshees. And she's like, "I'm leaving you for her." And so the guy's just been sitting at the bar getting drunk, and he's just totally down on his luck and keeps talking to her image in different places. And so he avoids getting captured at the beginning, but he's still in the bar with everybody else because he falls on his way out of the bathroom, trips, and knocks himself out. And
it happens to the best of us.
Seems to for him. It is a scene after scene of waiting for people to die, and along with the group deciding which people are going to die. What I thought was interesting, and I don't know, because we don't know what their past was, is they get the cook, the chef, a French guy named Yannick, to prepare the different people. Like once they killed the boss of the place, Chewie, they have him make essentially the appetizer for the main course as the meals are supposed to go on. And they say they basically get called down, and it's like they try to say, "Oh, we're going to let you live if you do these things, and we're going to determine all this stuff." And then they kind of all realize, yeah, but why would you weld the door shut if you're just going to rob us? You know, why would you make it so that you can't get out and we can't get out if your whole object is to take the money and leave as quickly as possible? And they're like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. We're not here to rob you. We're here to eat all of you." And so no one's really going to live. Although they still make promises here and there of like, if you do this right, you may live through the night. And they all kind of get the same reckoning of, no, you're not going to ever release us. So they work in their own ways to fight back. But the chef Yannick does these brilliant recipes because he's a very, very good chef. But we find out over time that he has a dark past. And so that's why he's working in this kind of not shithole, but not technically really fantastic Mexican restaurant as the chef there. He's able to work far below his station because of necessity, because he did something fucked up where he poisoned somebody with blowfish.
Which comes into play later.
Where
he poisons a McPoyle with basil.
Yeah. And that's the other part of this, is that you're waiting to see them fight back. You're waiting to see them kind of get released. I didn't understand exactly why they let one of them free, which is what they did. It wasn't Cricket. It must have been not Bethany. Oh, it was Carrie. They let Carrie free because she won the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon competition, which is one of the
fucking hilarious.
The convenient things to see who lives. And they're like, yeah, you'll be able to get up and stretch your legs and stuff like that. But she then uses her freedom to kind of seduce Anson.
Yep.
To basically like put herself in the same situation that Mimi's character was the year before. Is like I'll be able to do this to get my way out of this. But with that, she works in tandem with Yannick the chef to basically poison Steph with the basil. The chef uses a weird code, and then they keep referencing like, "Oh, that's the easiest thing. Anybody should be able to spot this code." But it's done in such a weird roundabout way. We get to see a building relationship between Cricket, who is the sort of queen bitch character at the beginning, the way that she's talking to her friend on the phone. They're all supposed to go to some college party, and she's the basic mean girl. Between her character and Hector, Gabriel Luna's character, who is the bad boy, has a prison record, is working with his uncle. His uncle has saved him from going back to jail, essentially, by giving him a job there. And as they're trying to escape, it kind of builds up. It was like, maybe they'll get together. Maybe there are a final two. There's not a final two in this.
Nope. None whatsoever.
It definitely takes it like nobody comes out of this unscathed.
No.
And many don't make it out alive.
Mm-mm.
And that's the thing, is that this kind of movie, I find it very funny, but it is a lot of torture. The freakiest scene to me was not even any of the scenes with blood. It's that first moment when they kind of reveal what they're going to do when they say, "We're going to eat all of you." Mm-hmm. And then they all get into people's faces. It's like, "Oh, you think that we're just going to let you go or whatever?" And then Steph starts sticking his tongue all over Cricket's face.
Fucking weird.
And Mimi is up in someone else's face, and Anson has got his nose right up to the eyeball of Carrie. Like, it was so intense and so uncomfortable, and you're just watching, you're like, yeah, how far is this really going to go? And it's very violating, and it certainly makes them feel demeaned and makes them feel like they have no control, which realistically they don't. And that's this whole situation, but it gives it a weight that I don't think someone just kind of announcing to the room can do. Like, yeah, you feel for them, you feel fear for them, but until you see that kind of demonstration, and that demonstration was so intense in a way that is, again, it's not a rape scene, it's not a torture scene, it's not a Saw torture porn scene, but it does give you that same effect as any of those things would. That made me uncomfortable. And then some of the individual deaths made me a little uncomfortable. And certainly there are characters that I rooted for that you shouldn't root for anybody, because, again, nobody makes it out either alive or completely okay. But you kind of, at a point or another, you think, oh, but this character's so cool. And that character goes. And you just feel like, shit. So it's not a feel-good movie, but it is a really funny movie.
Right.
And everything that they did had a level of humor to it that makes it a little bit more palatable for me. And I know that these are the kind of movies that I tend to pick out. I'm the one who recommended Feast the first time. I certainly lean towards stuff that's got a bit of comedy to it when it's my turn to choose.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Just wait till it's my turn to choose, you son of a bitch.
I think it is, actually.
It is, actually. But with that being said, anything else you want to say, or should we go to the Fap Cave?
Yeah, unless we just went and broke down every scene, every murder in this, and I don't want to do that. If you haven't seen Gravy yet,
do it.
I would say check it out. I would say look at it for yourself, see how you feel about it, give us some feedback on it. We'd like to hear it. And I know this was playing on cable last year. It might still be available on one of the movie channels now. It doesn't seem like it's that hard to find, and it seems like a nice little discovery when you get the chance to actually see it. If you just pass it up because the title was misleading, like it was for Matt, next time it's on, check it out.
Yep. Corey, let's go to the Fap Cave. All right.
When we go to the Fap Cave, do we ever take the Fatmobile?
We could. It's going to be weird, though, because it's a one-seater with a big black dildo in the middle.
Yeah. That's not a gear shift.
That's not a gear shift. That's my penis. Maybe it's a gear shift. I don't even know. If you are unfamiliar with the FAP scale, eventually when I get back to where I'm going. It is the three categories, or the three tiered Jesus Christ. The three-tiered scale of masturbatory awesomeness. We'll start off with the feature. How was the story of the movie Gravy? How was the acting? A 0 to 5 scale. Corey as the guest that we don't have. So it's you.
It's just me. I thought this was very interesting. I thought it was very well done. I like the little kooky moments where Bert was talking to his girlfriend in his head, or having images of her in like a comic booky thought bubble. I like when they did the flashback to when they met Mimi, them showing it on a black and white projector in a smaller screen within the big screen of like you're watching an old home movie or a classic film. I like those little touches because it gave it an air of silliness, but also care. Everything kind of stood apart onto its own. And it, again, originality, maybe not. It's not like this is a story that hasn't ever been told before, the type of story, at least it is. But it did good things with it. And it certainly treated the characters with respect, even ones that weren't there for very long, that weren't meant to be around very long. So I'm going to give it a 4.
I give it a 3. Less explanation than that.
I love how you never say why. I gotta go through this whole long-winded process of like, here's why I'm rating it this way, and here's what I thought.
I don't have to explain myself.
You absolutely don't. I'm just glad that
Son
you're
of
keeping your pants
bitch. I have to pee real bad right now.
on.
Yeah. That's what's the next? The attention, the rewatchability. How
the thing you don't have at all.
how does the movie?
You made the scoring system.
I know, that's a fucking problem. Does this movie earn a place on your shelf? Would you recommend it to your friends?
After a year on my DVR, I didn't directly delete it after I watched it because I want my wife to see it. First of all, I don't know if she's ever sat down to see it. And yeah, I think it does. I think that I would, as uncomfortable as it is, it's so funny, and the dialogue really sticks out for me. The character work and dialogue easily makes it something that I would watch again, and I would highly recommend it. So I'm going to go 4 again for that.
I give it a 2. I enjoyed it. I just I don't know how much I will run to go ahead and rewatch this movie. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad in any way, but there wasn't so much of it being memorable that I'm just going to go ahead and like run back to watch it.
Now, you were asking earlier if there was a sequel planned.
Simply because the end it shows what's her nuts, Carrie taking pictures of what's his cock,
Anson and Bethany.
Yep. So that's really it. I was just curious because it leaves it very open ended. If there is a second one, I would watch it. Mostly because Corey will probably make me watch it.
I mean, we haven't watched Feast 2 or 3 yet, but
yet.
That's
we also haven't watched Critters 2 through 4.
No, and we need to.
Yep. Last category.
Critters 2.
God damn it, Corey, I have to pee. The last category we have is Panic. The effects, were you surprised? Were you kept on the edge of your seat?
Me?
Yeah, you. Who the fuck else?
I'm just torturing you now. The effects were pretty good, and there was certain things that I was not expecting, like when they showed the character Winketta after she was dispatched, and they showed her in the freezer. Mm-hmm. That was a level I was not expecting out of this film.
It's very true.
Like all the rest of it is mostly people getting chopped up, bit, eaten a little bit at a time, that kind of stuff. That was all okay. That one was surprising. For the most part, the effects were at a level of what this film seemed to be at itself. Mm-hmm. They were neither fantastic nor poor. So right in line, I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, the same. I mean, it was you got what you got. I mean, they didn't, like when Hector was held up into the fan, you didn't see anything other than below the chest and blood spraying. You saw a lot of blood spraying, but that's really about it. So that's why
I did like the end credits when they showed everybody dead on the menus.
That's true. That is very true. So I give it a 3 as well. You can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pot@gncast.com. You can leave us a message on the website. You can follow the show at Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Podcast Terror, and you subscribe. You can
subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any of your favorite podcatchers, and leave us feedback at whichever one you like. Check back on Matt's bladder, see how that's doing.
Oh, God, it
also,
hurts.
assistant options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe. And finally, you can join our Facebook group under Galactic Network. Matt, where can people find you besides the potty?
The bathroom. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Untapped, the beer app, at Matt the Lifeguard. Corey.
And you can find the stuff that I help publish at donutscomics.com.
Terrific. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Podcast of Terror. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Hi there. This is Brett Stewart from Geek Cinema Society. Are you a film lover? Do you consider yourself a connoisseur of the silver screen? Well, Geek Cinema Society is a weekly roundtable program where each episode we touch on a film considered pivotal to geek culture. From Blade Runner to The Goonies to Mad Max, we dig into it all. Plus, our guest each week hasn't seen that week's film until the episode. Join me and my co-hosts, Nicole Davis and David Luzader, on a spectacularly fun journey that hits your podcast feed every Sunday. Available on Blazing Caribou Studios.
Next week on the Podcast of Terror.
Next week, Corey and I will be talking about a little film called Southbound. I think it's a film. It was Corey's idea. I've never actually seen it, which I'm sure is a huge shock.
I haven't seen it either, so it'll be new to both of us. But it's an anthology movie where the horror tales intersect with each other.
You know how much I love horror's tales.
I know, you just like to rush them against you, cuddle them. I don't know. I really don't know.
Sometimes I just need.
I don't know you at all, Matt. Who are you?
I'm a man beast. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Podcast of Terror. We will talk to you guys next week.
Stay scared, everybody.
This has been a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.